The extreme right and the populist right haven't had all that much success in Greece since the fall of the Colonel George Papadopoulos in 1974. We have three parties that have gained significance: Laos, the Independent Greeks, and the Golden Dawn. The former two splintered from New Democracy and have had moderate success. The Golden Dawn are of a different breed altogether and have also enjoyed moderate success too. Note moderate success. It's important to stay level-headed when discussing the Golden Dawn. The growth of the party is certainly significant, but at a fairly stable 7 to 8%, the party isn't exactly poised for victory. The question is, though, how has such an extreme anti-democratic party managed to do so well with the Greek electorate? This requires a purvey of Greek politics and the financial crash. This is complicated and, for the purposes of this video, simplified heavily, but hopefully also rewarding and illuminating nonetheless. Post-military dictatorship through 1974 to 2011, Greece was dominated by a two-party system: the centre-left PASOK and the centre-right New Democracy. By 1981, Greece was the 15th member of the European Union and seems to be undergoing a fast modernization process, involving the formation of a pluralist and democratic system. This isn't exactly the case, though. Throughout Greece's modern history, its politics have been beset by clientelism, this being the act of vote farming through favours distributed to constituencies. It is not the purpose of this video to go into microscopic detail here, but it is necessary to note the political culture that pervaded and the climate this created post-economic crash. In 1974, Constantine Karamanlis founded New Democracy and undertook a process of transformation. Although a figure of the centre-right, Karamanlis legalized the Communist Party and other more extreme left elements within the country to make Greece a pluralist system more in keeping with its European counterparts. In 1981, membership of the EU formally made Greece a member of the European Community, cementing the process of modernization and democratization. This wasn't without hitch. Also in 1974, PASOK was founded, a populist and in many ways radical leftist political outfit. Karamanlis sought political consensus and unity, whereas PASOK, fronted by the fiery Andreas Pandreou, was staunchly anti-Western. In some ways, it drew from nationalist uprisings to the east. Its slogan, "Greece to the Greeks," found precedent in Nasser's Egyptian nationalist slogan, "Egypt to the Egyptians." The party was anti-EU, anti-NATO, anti-American, basically a radical and anti-Occidental rallying cry. The party was able to form a majority government come 1981 and held its power for just under a decade. Then in the 90s, New Democracy arrived on the scene again, and then PASOK, and so on. You get the idea. Although both New Democracy and PASOK were able to develop mass bases who no doubt were ideological, the fundamental facet of Greek democracy that separated it from its more modernized counterparts was clientelism. The Greek state saw a monumental growth in the succeeding 3 decades post-military dictatorship. This was done for electoral purposes rather than functional ones. This had all the more allure to voters due to a law passed way back in 1911 that guaranteed lifetime employment to civil service employees. This was for benign reasons. Political parties back in the day used to fire all previous employees and fill the jobs with their supporters. This law aimed to prevent that from happening. However, an unintended consequence was, instead of firing people, new governments would just blindly employ more people. By 2010, over 80% of public expenditure went to civil service salaries, pensions and wages. Not only that, but fraud was rampant and huge electoral incentives were in place to not pursue those committing it. Furthermore, countless laws and regulations were put in place to protect a number of professions in an unabated process of vote procurement. Take lawyers, for example, one which we will come back to later. The state requires lawyers to charge a minimum fee, thus circumventing the possibility of competition. On top of this, the state requires the presence of lawyers in numerous transactions, like the signing of contracts related to the buying and selling of real estate. The state pays lawyers a fixed fee for this service. This is one example of thousands of others, of differing governments implementing different laws to buy votes from different populations. To put this into perspective, in a space of 35 years, 2,857 laws and regulations were passed every single year. Not only is this madness, but it makes reform nigh on impossible, as the simple act of locating a law to rectify it proves costly and time-consuming. All the while, the groups standing opposed to the changes can mobilize and fight them. The basic point is, the majority of Greek state organization has not been done to maximize functionality, but more so to allocate resources for political purposes. The financial crash, then, doesn't seem so surprising. Thus, in May 2010, the current PASOK government had to sign a memorandum with the IMF, EU and ECB that agreed to the financing of the Greek economy, but only under severe austerity measures. The financial lifeblood of the clientelistic strategies these parties had employed was severed, and the public, so dependent on the state apparatus, were hit hard. Both New Democracy and PASOK were beholden to this agreement, and both were responsible for the crisis. This is one of the main factors for the growth of radicalism, the merging of the centre-left and the centre-right into something indistinguishable, opening up space for different political actors. Prior to 2009, New Democracy and PASOK averaged over 80% of the vote between them. Come May 2012, this had dropped to a mere 32%. Now to talk about the right in Greece. New Democracy has dominated the scene. Competitors have spawned, but the party has dealt with this successfully through co-option. Not of ideas, but of rival party members. An example of this is the National Camp Party. In 1977, they were able to secure just under 7% of the vote. New Democracy dealt with this swiftly and pillaged National Camp membership, and the party collapsed soon after. In 2000, Laos, or the Popular Orthodox Rally, was formed, basically an offshoot from New Democracy of those dissatisfied with its liberal tendencies. They did well and were actually pretty extreme in rhetoric, although not anti-democratic. They were anti-Semitic and warned of Greece being run by Jews, and even coordinated with Golden Dawn members, with 4 Golden Dawn representatives on their electoral lists of 2002. In 2009, the party got over 5% of the vote and 15 seats in parliament. Now, however, the party has collapsed. The party entered a coalition government in 2011, a government that negotiated the second bailout agreement, further reducing Greek autonomy over fiscal policy. In 2012, the party got 1.6% of the vote, and key members defected to New Democracy. This is interesting to bear in mind when we speak of Golden Dawn. In Greece, political legitimacy in the form of government participation has actually served to lower the approval ratings of parties. This is because the government is powerless to combat the fiscal policies of the bailout agreement itself. Parties subsisting outside the system of conventional politics don't have to compromise. They don't need to make concessions and thus can function on their own terms. This finally brings us to Golden Dawn. Golden Dawn did not start as a political party but a publication in 1983. Initially, the party eschewed politics altogether, stating, "We regard politics a filthy affair, and ourselves too pure to be involved in it." The party was strongly anti-democratic in nature. Its founder and leader, Nikolaos Mikaloliakos, started his political activity working for the National Political Union, a formation led by the imprisoned former dictator George Papadopoulos, although this outfit received no electoral success. Actually, nor did Golden Dawn. The party never received more than 0.5% of the vote nationally until 2012. In the 90s, the party started to politicize. This was in response to the Macedonia controversy that mobilized millions of Greeks. To be brief, in 1992, after the breakup of Yugoslavia, the former Yugoslav Republic of Macedonia became the Republic of Macedonia. This sparked a surge of nationalist outrage in Greece. In February, over 1 million people took to the streets claiming Macedonia is Greek, and thus the name Macedonia undermined Greek sovereignty when applied to former Yugoslavia. The political class, aside from the Communist Party, acted unanimously and refused to recognize the state under the name Macedonia. Due to this controversy, the former Yugoslav Republic of Macedonia has never been granted entry into the EU, the decision always vetoed by Greece. From this point onwards, Golden Dawn became an active political party. Make no bones about it, the party is basically neo-Nazi. Although Golden Dawn see National Socialism as a specifically German phenomena, they certainly have strong ideological roots and commonalities. The party's logo, although not an adapted swastika as the media often claim, is certainly reminiscent given the red and black colour scheme. Elias Kassidiaris, the party's official spokesperson, has even quoted the Protocols of the Elders of Zion in the Greek parliament. One MP has Sieg Heil tattooed on his arm, and an article written for the party's publication by Mikaloliakos closed with Heil Hitler. I could go on. This is strange, as all parties that are on the European right and have experienced significant electoral success have attempted to tone down these associations where they have existed. Golden Dawn, though, haven't. The party's magazine in 2006 emphatically asserted, "The fact that we now use the terms nationalism, popular nationalism, and social nationalism does not mean that we have changed our ideas. It is simply that we consider it more acceptable to use these terms, for the fact that the term National Socialism invites misunderstanding, given the ocean of propaganda over the last 60 years. Success for the party came in 2010. Mikhail Olyakos earned over 8% of the vote in the 6th district of Athens. The party's strategy was to start in Athens and from there expand over the country, a strategy that worked. By 2012, in the national elections, the party obtained just under 7% of the national vote. Civil society in Greece has never been especially strong, as it's always been dominated by the clientelistic networks of the establishment parties. This situation changed rapidly after austerity measures were implemented post-bailout agreement. The establishment parties could no longer pay their constituencies, and thus people started to mobilize. This resulted in mass civil unrest as networks of Greece took matters into their own hands and lost all faith in the state to solve their problems. An example of this is the I Won't Pay movement, in which thousands of Greeks refused to pay for services like public transport, toll booths, and doctor consultations. Golden Dawn were perfectly suited to this environment and engaged in similar grassroots activism, positioning themselves as a quasi-police force and providers of welfare. In Agios Panteleimon in Athens, the party engaged in what became known as cleansing operations, which sought to clear the streets of immigrants associated in the minds of Greeks with crime and violence. In one shocking case in 2011, a Greek man was killed by an immigrant while escorting his pregnant wife to hospital. A day later, 25 immigrants were hospitalized and one murdered. The party has enjoyed moderate support from the police. In 2012, after the election, Golden Dawn MPs were videoed destroying market stalls owned by migrants. Police did nothing. Not only that, but accounts have surfaced of citizens complaining to police regarding crimes committed by immigrants. Some police responded by giving the number of the local Golden Dawn chapter. Normally, this sort of political behaviour would be the death of a political force, especially so in Northern Europe, but we find the opposite happening in Greece. In fact, political violence hasn't seemed to hinder the Golden Dawn's electoral performance at all. In a televised debate, Golden Dawn MP Kasidiaris physically assaulted a female Communist Party member, which actually served to increase party support rather than hinder it. That said, the party doesn't solely mobilise through violence. In 2012, the party garnered extensive media attention through distributing free food to Greeks. The caveat was that citizens had to show their ID cards to be legible for the service. The mayor of Athens attempted to stop this service, dubbing it a soup kitchen of hate, which resulted in him being attacked by Golden Dawn supporters. On top of that, the party has also held blood drives, supplying blood to local hospitals on the condition that the blood is used solely for ethnic Greeks and not immigrant populations. These are important and necessary services for many Greeks, and on the local level has established strong support bases for the party. State responses to Golden Dawn were lackadaisical at first. However, this changed quickly following the murder of Pavlos Faizas, a Greek anti-fascist rapper, by a Golden Dawn member. Anti-fascists mobilized en masse in response, and the government opened court proceedings against Golden Dawn, accusing them of being a criminal organization. Now, this isn't exactly false. The group openly advocates violence as a viable means of political action and has done so on numerous occasions. That said, the court proceedings are still ongoing and likely will never resolve. The now Syriza-led government attempted to implement a pension reform in line with austerity measures. The result of this was a nationwide lawyer strike in response to the dissolving of previously sedimented clientelistic networks discussed earlier, which paralyzed the court proceedings. Really, it's very unlikely anything will come of it. So why the success? Well, contrary to the other parties I've discussed throughout Europe, its success lies in its extremism and disavowal of democracy. As stated, there have been populist and right-leaning parties in Greece, and some have even done okay, but all have imploded the moment they've so much as touched political power post-economic crisis. Idealism quickly shatters when faced with the harsh austerity measures the Greek government is forced to accept. This was true of the Greek Orthodox Rally and is also true of the Independent Greeks, another nationalist party that is currently in coalition with Syriza. They are predicted to lose all their seats at the next election. Golden Dawn has avoided this trap and likely will continue to do so, as no other party would dare try forming a coalition with them. In Greece, politics is the enemy of idealism, and parties once in power are finding themselves in the impossible situation of managing the crisis whilst attempting to appease a population in dire need. The Golden Dawn, on the other hand, are ignoring political institutions and simply implementing the society they would like to see by force. Not only is their rhetoric extreme, but their behaviour is also, which in many cases is having a tangible and positive impact on the lives of some Greeks. Post-2014 election, only 40% of those that voted for the Golden Dawn said that they had ideological allegiance with the party. Now, this is not to dismiss the Golden Dawn as a protest vote. It's certainly more than that, but more so because the party actually does, rather than speaks. This in mind, the party finds itself in a bind. Post the politics of crisis, the party will have trouble subduing its more militant and extreme base. New Democracy are poised to win back the government from Syriza come the next election, and once the crisis subsides, Golden Dawn will likely be required to moderate, to maintain and expand its support that don't necessarily align with the ideals of the party. Should that need arise, the party will struggle indelibly with its more militant elements. Remember, the party only has 7% of support from Greeks. In order to increase that base, moderation will be necessary to broaden appeal. Otherwise, the Greek people will seek out more approachable alternatives. In a way then, Golden Dawn has benefited from being successful, but not too successful. How the party navigates the changing electoral climate will largely dictate whether it becomes a genuine contender for government, or, like all its European counterparts on the extreme right, a political nonentity cast into the shadows.